can hear everything. You can hear everything. You can hear everything.
Everybody get ready for the Gonsalves grift. I'm curious how much they got paid for this interview.
What happened when you first learned these pictures from hell had been released?
Welcome to Bronx Tales with your host, Bronxy B, and me, I'm Logan. Thank you for being here.
Well, actually, one of the Idaho State Police detectives called Olivia and told her that the photos were coming out. The crime scene was going to be pretty evident. So this entity called Olivia. By the time she got off the phone, she was calling me in a panic and telling me that they were coming out, and they were out. They were already on the website. Somewhere along the line, it was very apparent that there were three pictures that showed the victims that did not get redacted, and it came down. It came down because there were three. But whoever had downloaded those in that time frame before, I don't know how long it was up, have those pictures of actual victims.
Yeah, this whole thing has turned into a profit-making enterprise. The day before, they told us that because somebody complained that did FOIA requests that the families were getting the photos at the same time, we no longer get the photos. We don't get any of the discovery from these images or anything that's been a FOIA request. They get it first, and then we can get it after them.
Did you see a photo with the students' crime scene photos? Horrific, bloody crime scene photos with the victims' bodies in the photos. Did you see that?
Unfortunately, yes.
I don't understand why they can't ever do the right thing, Steve. They did not take this case to trial. They did not find out the truth. This was a death penalty case. If we're going to have the death penalty, this is it. They took a weak plea. We never learned the whole truth. They wouldn't do the right thing. And now they are buckling under to a FOIA request, but they don't even have the courtesy to give it to you first.
Just to the other family that ever goes through a case like this, just know they're going to lie to you. They're going to tell you in your weakest moment that if you just want to make it go away, just go along with the plea, just go along and all this stuff will go away.
What did that do to you, Christy?
So, I chose to look very quickly. It's hard to unsee. And I knew that. I knew it would happen.
What about it, Steve?
I haven't seen very many. On the ones that I've seen are just ones that my family wanted me to comment on if it was as bad as, basically showing me seeing the victims in body bags, things that they're not entertainment. I mean, they're for investigations. And if you're not going to have a trial, you really don't have the same investigation at that point. It's not a need to know. It's not the community, and you're not having a jury. So it's kind of frustrating that we're still dealing with it.
And we get a lot of heat over this because people say, you guys are no different. It is very common for crime scene photos to come out. I get that. I understand that. I feel bad for those families that their loved ones are out there and this has happened. But I just feel like times are changing, and what people do with those photos nowadays is what the real problem is. Blow them up on social media and analyze them and talk about them. It's not true crime anymore. It's troll crime, and that's where things are changing. And it has been for quite a while.
They're making a profit off your dead loved ones. And that was going on.
They're relishing in it.
Yeah. And that was to a lesser extent before. But like your organization isn't showing them, you're not going to get that same kind of professionalism in some of these smaller true crime people.
Yeah.
If one of my kids did something like this, they would be did to our family. We would not be supporting them, that we would not be. I tell all my kids, if you do something that atrocious. Even like something like that where you overly go over somebody else as well, you're done.
I'm just curious what Nancy's talking about, considering she's also getting paid off of talking about the picture. She didn't even have to show them. She's getting paid just by talking about them with Christy and Steve. So I'm not really sure why she's downing other people that are showing the pictures so we can get clarification and somehow, some way find the truth, considering we've been lied to during the entire last 3 years of investigating this case. Every time I hear Steve Gonsalves talk about this crime, I can't help but wonder how the family feels of the victim, his brother unalived. You know, the handicapped man that his brother unalived? I bet their family feels the same way Steve and Christy do as well. If anybody's making money off of their daughter's unaliving, it's them.
8:03, he is now driving back to the crime scene to view his handiwork. This is very common amongst criminals.
ISP even stated that Brian Koberger did not go near the crime scene the next morning. And as we see, he's on camera at Costco at the time that they keep insinuating he was driving by the crime scene the next morning. We all remember the black heart that was on a piece of paper sitting in front of Brian Koberger at the plea hearing. We all have the answer now as to what it was and where it came from.
We're all so proud of him because he had overcome so much. It was a heart surrounded by vibrant colors that I had drawn for Brian, even if I could not be there in person.
His sister, Melissa, sent him that heart surrounded by different bright colors to hopefully bring him some peace and know that he is loved by his family. I'm sure I'm not the only one who remembers last year when several news outlets put out a statement on the internet saying that there was no rugs in any of the victims' system and that they only had alcohol in their system. I find it interesting that now when we get the autopsy report, there absolutely was rugs in their system. Once again, we were just lied to. I want to direct you to the reports regarding the initial walkthrough of the crime scene. There were reports made by Officer Smith, Officer Gunderson, Officer Warner, Officer Nunez, and Schneider, in which they all viewed Maddie's room, and none of them said anything about seeing a knife sheath hanging off the bed. Matter of fact, Gunderson even states that he walked into the room around the bed and stood at the top of the bed where Maddie's head was, and he still did not mention anything about a knife sheath hanging off the bed. Only in Payne's report did he state that later he found the knife sheath. Well, I'm not sure what later means to Officer Payne, and I'm just curious if it's later, like when he was in the room alone, as he himself stated in one of the reports. Is that when he found the knife sheath that's hanging off the bed? Let's talk about Eric Gower, the Uber driver, or the driver who gives Kaylee and Maddie and their friends rides for free at all hours of the night. Strange, right? It's also strange that he knew he was going to have an interview with detectives and he steam cleaned his vehicle prior to arriving to the interview. He did more cleaning of his vehicle than Brian Koberger did of his vehicle. Isn't it interesting that Molly said she couldn't find 1122 King Road to deliver food because the light above the address was so bright she couldn't see it?
Have you been there at night at that house?
Yes, I have. Yep.
Okay, so you know that the number for the house is right there under the light, and it's very hard to see at night. That was probably my biggest problem, was trying to find the number.
However, Eric Gower says when he pulled in, there wasn't a light above the address.
I know there was one on downstairs because when they opened the door, like, the light was on.
They don't have a porch light or a driveway light?
They do have one, I think, on the exterior of their house, but it's usually off.
And rarely is that light turned on. Eric Gower also stated that when he was backing out of the driveway, he was having trouble maneuvering around a silver vehicle and a black SUV, both parked on the street.
How many cars would you say were in the driveway or the parking area in front? Would you say
Here we go. Breaking the internet right here.
it's crowded?
It was a little bit. I think there was 4 in the physical driveway, and then there was 1 or 2 parked right here on the side of the road. Because I'm going to go back now, making that corner is kind of tight, and a whole lot of ground clearance in general. And there's kind of a curb that sticks out, but there was like a black SUV parked right here to kind of make it tight.
Do you remember what Enan said in the beginning? How he also saw a black SUV with out-of-state plates sitting on the street outside of King Road residence?
No, I'm sorry. Beginning of Queen Road. So Taylor goes to King, and then right when it turned on the Queen, it was on like the corner of Queen and King Road on the right side of Queen, as you turn left from King.
Here.
Yeah.
Because like the street I'm talking about is like right here where we,
Yeah.
This is the house that sits back a little bit. So when you're coming down Taylor, you turn on here to King.
Yeah.
And then you wrap around. So you're saying you saw it like here or like
right there, yeah.
Now, I'm not sure who was driving that vehicle, but we all know who does drive black SUVs with out-of-state plates. It's usually the FBI. Now, I'm not saying that was an FBI vehicle, but it seems interesting that they both mentioned the same vehicle sitting outside of 1122 in the early morning hours. And Enid stated he'd never seen that vehicle before. And as mentioned in yesterday's live, we went over the autopsy report of Kaylee, and I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and knows the information that we found yesterday. I'll play it for you now. So we'll start here in regards to Kaylee and Maddie. It says no blood is noted on the bottoms or tops of their feet, indicating they were not upright or moving about the area after their bloodletting injuries were inflicted, meaning they didn't get up and move after their injuries, right? Pretty much, again, it's no bloodletting injuries were reported below the waist or on the backs of either Kaylee or Maddie, which I find very contradicting because we've heard up until now, all the information we've gotten is that Kaylee did have injuries on her back. We've seen that in several different reports, so I'm very confused about this. However, that's not what I'm here to tell you guys. And then this says, the autopsy shows a clearer view of the sleep pants of Kaylee. The lack of blood on the front of her sleeping pants further supports the conclusion that Kaylee never stood upright after the bloodletting injuries to her upper body were inflicted. Now, I also want to remind you guys that there is evidence that Kaylee's body was moved after she was injured. So I want to take us back up to Kaylee's autopsy information. So I want to remind you guys that under the blunt force injuries, these are specifically just the blunt force injuries. So just the injuries that happened from a weapon that was other than a knife. And those are scalp lacerations, bleeding around the brain, nasal fracture, which could very much have caused her to have trouble breathing and in turn choke on basically her own blood, which could cause the petechial hemorrhages that was present in the eyes and the mouth. Now, first, Dago and I both thought that, there might have to be pressure on the neck to cause petechial hemorrhages, or what they call petechiae, which is broken blood vessels in the face and in the eyes. It can be around the mouth. But Dago did some more digging while we were live, and it showed that choking on blood can also cause this. So she had bruising around the eyes, pattern bruises extending across her lower face, and then obviously stuff with her airway, blood came into her upper and lower airways. She had a blood alcohol concentration of 0.107. And again, she was moved after her injuries, but it was not by her own doing. She didn't get up and walk away or scooch over or nothing. So In my opinion, she was moved by a perpetrator. But I want to show you guys right here as well. It says asphyxial injuries, which goes along, with the choking, the petechiae. Now here it shows, the stab wounds of the face, scalp, and neck. This number here is how many there were. So, and it's by each of them. So that one was more than 24. Incised wounds of the chest, there was 11. And there were incised wounds of the upper extremities, which is her arms, right? And there were 3 of them. And I want you guys to maybe throw your guess in the chat of what is not listed here. What do we not see in all of this that most of the other victims, if not all of the other victims, actually had on their autopsy? You could throw a guess in the chat real quick before I say it. But, and this is very, very important, Kaylee did not have any defensive wounds. And nobody has pointed this out yet. And I feel like that is so very important to this case and what happened to her, because that only leaves us with 2 options. Either Kaylee was hit in the head first with a blunt force object and she was knocked unconscious, or Kaylee was tied up. Those are the only 2 I can think of. Either she was unconscious or she was tied up. Kaylee does not have any defensive wounds. Kaylee did not have any defensive wounds. She also didn't have any red fluid on her pants, meaning after the initial hit to her head, her body was never in an upright position ever again. So either Kaylee was hit and unconscious or Kaylee was tied up. I'm not sure why we've been lied to on every single aspect of this case for the last 3 years, but the truth is finally coming out. Slowly, but surely, we'll get to the truth.
You can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, go.